Dear learners and listeners, welcome to this session. Today's topic is Meaning and History of Corporate Social Responsibility. This topic is part of the course MJM 029. I am Dr. G. Uma, faculty in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University. Welcome to this session. First, all of you must know what is corporate social responsibility. In this session, we are going to trace the history of corporate social responsibility and understand the benefits of corporate social responsibility through examples. When you listen this topic or when you particular questions which was are still are relevant, even immediately after hearing the term corporate social responsibility, these are the questions may come to your mind. First, I will tell the questions: where and when did the corporate social responsibility, that is the concept of corporate social responsibility emerged? What responsibility towards society can business people reasonably be expected to assume? These are the questions immediately comes to your mind when you listen the term corporate social responsibility. So, let us explore these questions in this lecture, emergence of corporate social responsibility. So, CSR, that is the corporate social responsibility, today has gone through its evolution process. So, every corporates, they are doing certain kinds of CSR activities, and those activities widely covered by the media. So, you must be wondering, when did the concept of CSR has emerged? In India, a major change has happened in 2013, and across the world the practice has been evolving either due to the ethical behaviors or societal demands or formal laws. These are the three things majorly played a critical role for the emergence of CSR. First one is the corporates, they have certain ethics towards the society. So, they need to be, whenever they do business, their business should have a certain ethics in their business and the societal demands, because the corporates, most of them, they produce and they distribute through markets. So, the society demands most whatever they produce. Many corporates, they use the existing resources, available resources, whether it is a water or like minerals, or so they have used so many existing common property resources, or like they use the existing resources. When they use the existing resources to produce certain things, out of that when the corporates get benefit out of existing resources, society certainly they demands, and certain resources they can be, like for example, if they use certain resources from the forest produce, it is very important for the corporates to sustainably use the forest, and they have to ensure that the forests are regenerated, and the people living at the periphery or when the communities, when they use the forest, it is very important for the corporates to closely work with the community to whatever they produce. They have to work closely with the community, and they whatever the community demands or whatever the community expects, it is the responsibility of the corporates to fulfill the responsibility of the communities. For example, certain companies, they established the bottling plants, or they produce certain kinds of drinks, that is the regularly when the corporates, they establish the bottling plants to distribute the bottled waters in the society. Automatically they take the water from the earth. Okay, so it is important for the corporates to establish the certain kinds of, automatically if they take more and more water from the earth, the water table will deplete, and the people living in and around that particular company may affect because of the continuous taking of the water from the earth. It is very important for the corporates to recharge the water tables, and for that they have to establish the ponds, and they have to establish the certain kinds of structures where they could able to save the rainwater, that is the rainwater harvesting structures. So, certain kinds of structures they have to establish to recharge the water tables in the earth. So, it is the either due to the ethical behavior or societal demands, or some countries like in India establish the formal laws to do certain kinds of CSR activities. So, CSR today has gone through its evolution process. In India, a major change happened in 2013, and across the world the practice has been evolving either due to ethical behaviors or societal demands or formal laws. So, let us look at this process of growth of CSR over time. First, let us see the emergence of CSR. You all know, in the early 19th century and early 20th century, there was an industrial revolution. When we look at the history, there is a first industrial revolution and second industrial revolution. All those historical facts you must have learnt when you learnt the history. So, when you learnt the subject history. So, industrial revolution brought mass production and hence the need to keep and retain workers by factories. Then the business took care of their employees so that their production can be increased and profit can be maximized. For this reason only, most of the industries, they have established certain kinds of laws that will address the well-being of their employees. So, industrial revolution brought the mass production. When they do mass production, they automatically they employ lots of workers in the factories, and it is important for the factories to take care of the well-being of the employees. So, the production can be increased and profit can be maximized. This could be considered as the business decision for increasing production or the idea of stakeholders welfare. Here, who are all the stakeholders? Not only the owners who have invested to establish the factories, the workers are the stakeholders. So, it is welfare of the workers is very important to keep the production level at the maximum. And for how do they ensure the workers welfare of the workers by the industrialist? Basically, they have to ensure the many social welfare policies, like for example, proper leave and child care facilities if they more women, if they get employed, and properly some certain festival bonus, certain allowances, and they can access the advanced facilities for the welfare of their own children, and the industries they should ensure that the workers' children get proper education. For example, some industries they usually establish the health center inside the industrial complex to ensure that all the workers properly access the health facilities. These are the certain examples I mentioned you. So, it is important for the industries to ensure the welfare of the stakeholders. Here the stakeholders is the not only industrialist, the workers are the stakeholders, and whoever invest in that particular industry, they are also the stakeholders. So, it is important for the industries to ensure the welfare of the stakeholders. There was no exact definition at that time to segregate welfare and gains. So, in the during that period, during that industrial revolution in the 19th century and early 20th century, companies or industries they tried to ensure the welfare of their workers to ensure the maximum production. So, during that period it is only the welfare of the workers has the prime responsibility of the industrialist. So, there was during that period there was no exact definition to segregate welfare and gains. In 1800, philanthropy started emerging. However, it was still difficult to draw a line between the individual master's wish to do good or a profit generating business decision by the owner. A lot of good work was undertaken by the business houses. However, it was never concretized and seen as social responsibility or philanthropy. It was often considered a goodwill, religious or employees friendly act. Most of the activities were about endorsing arts, building religious buildings or donation to educational establishments. So, now I will give you CSR time period. Let us see. Like many researchers, when we look at the existing literature related to CSR, that is corporate social responsibility, many researchers believe that CSR as we know it today started taking shape in the 1950s. Patrick Murphy divided CSR into 4 time periods before and after the 1950s. Everything before 1950s comes under philanthropic time period. 1953 to 67, this era is named as awareness era, where businesses started acknowledging the inclusive social responsibility. 1968 to 73, this time period is known as issue. Here businesses started recognizing issues they want to work with. Issues like discrimination, climate change, poverty, etc. All these social issues, whatever we are talking, that they want to work in the period 1968 to 73. 1978 to 80s, finally this is the responsiveness time period, and during and after this period, businesses started taking CSR initiatives as a serious management task. Now let us see the modern version of corporate social responsibility. Howard Bowman was main individual contributor for the development of modern version of CSR. He published a book in 1953, that book titled as Social Responsibilities of the Businessman, which raised many right questions and talked about social responsibility of business and business owners. He was the first one who tried to define the term CSR, that is corporate social responsibility or social responsibility, which was commonly used earlier, like social SR is commonly used earlier before CSR. Bowman wrote how business is becoming powerful and playing a bigger role in decision making, and with power comes the responsibility towards society. He also mentioned that CSR is no magic formula for all the social problems. It can only guide businesses in future to act responsibly. The definition given in his book works as the base for most of the modern definition of CSR. This book added so much to streamlining the concept of CSR that some treat Howard Bowman as the father of CSR. However, the entire era was more about the talks and less of action during this initial period. This was the time when businesses were opening up the idea of CSR. In 1980s and 90s saw legitimate attempts begin to make corporates adopt CSR policies. It was an effort to streamline the whole process and make corporates accountable. In 1992 Earth Summit, that is related to the climate change and other issues related to climate change, 48 corporates came voluntarily forward to set an example of commitment towards the environment. The step was taken to increase voluntary participation in social causes. Though it was little later that corporates started to understand the power of CSR as a vital image building activity, in 1995, when a huge corporate was accused of harming the environment and had to resort to extreme measures to cover it up, many corporates began to understand that they need to maintain reputation and CSR can play a vital role in winning public trust. In today's time, CSR has reached its pinnacle in terms of its importance. Corporates understood the role of CSR not only for the benefit of stakeholders but also maintaining business in the long run. Now, you have seen overall how the CSR has emerged worldwide. Let us come to India. Now, let us see how the CSR, the concept of CSR has emerged in India. India is the country which actually used the law to make CSR mandatory for corporates. I told you either societal responsibility or through law the CSR came into force. As far as India is concerned, the government of India made a new Company Act in 2013 was introduced the concept of CSR to make it happen. The will and action of CSR is not new for India as it has its own share of philanthropy in the past. CSR has evolved in terms of definition, scope and reach with the growth of Indian economy and its corporates. It began as charity or philanthropy work of businesses. The driving force was mainly religious or traditional rather than well planned CSR activity. The charity trend was more about donations towards temples in the beginning. If you look at the CSR or philanthropy as far as Indian businesses are concerned, it all began as a charity work or philanthropy work of businesses. It was more about help only when needed and not on regular basis. Like whenever there is a need, if someone approach some corporates, they are ready to do certain kinds of activities, but they are not allocated certain percentage of their certain percentage of amount for CSR activities. In beginning it was not happened, and most of the donations or philanthropy work was guided by caste, religion or political point of view. In the 19th century, when big business corporates like Tatas and Birlas came into being, the need and intent was strongly felt for social development along with business growth. During the freedom struggle, stress was on Indian industries to show their support to help the society. Mahatma Gandhi tried to build the businesses in these directions by introducing the concept trusteeship. So, when you talk about this emergence of CSR, as far as India is concerned, you need to understand the term trusteeship. Gandhiji wanted to end the cutthroat ideas of newfound capitalism from the vision of Indian industrialist. Trusteeship, it's like I will explain you what is trusteeship. Trusteeship was the socio-economic idea where Gandhiji said that business owners or wealthy individuals should act as trustees of some of the other trust and look after the public. With this idea, he wanted wealthy businessmen to share their fortune with the needy for the betterment of the society. Marxist approach of socialism was dominant in such measures. Gandhiji's ideas inspired many businesses to work towards societal and financial development of the nation. Major contributions were made to support Gandhi's philosophy on areas like untouchability, women empowerment. After independence, when India rose to the ideas of mixed economy of public service undertakings, also introduced, private sector did not work on the forefront of CSR, because when we got an independence, government took an idea of mixed economy where the both public and private sectors involved in the development of the secondary and tertiary sectors. Most of the public sector undertakings, they have taken CSR as their very important work in their activities. So, mostly the private sector, they did not work on the on the forefront of CSR. New laws related to labor and environment were introduced, and this set of these laws, like new laws related to labor and environment, set the tone for CSR in India. The public sector units, that is PSUs, were established with the motive of apt distribution of resources. Nevertheless, they were effective only to certain level when it came to CSR. This turned the tide towards private and individually owned companies to take better initiatives towards CSR. In the 90s, witnessed the businesses becoming courageous to think beyond traditional CSR activities. They had started looking at it as a management process. They started seeing CSR as a sustainable corporate approach. Globalization and economic liberalization supported this thought process and approach towards CSR. India holds an important position when it comes to a new business markets, and lot of new ventures started coming up every year after 1990s. Here we have started, we understood the emergence of CSR at the national and international level. I will give you one case study to know about the CSR activities. First, I have mentioned the Tatas and Birlas when they started companies before independence. The Gandhi has introduced the concept trusteeship. These two companies accept the Gandhi's concept of trusteeship and they engage themselves in many activities to address the needs of the society. Tata Group carries out number of CSR activities in various spheres. Some programs focus on community improvement and some on improving the lives of people living in poverty. The group participates in women empowerment programs, rural community development and other prosperity programs through various NGOs, that is non-governmental organizations. They fund to the non-governmental organizations and through them they implement number of activities at the community level. They also provide scholarships and donations to various educational institutions. Tata also engages in healthcare programs like immunization, awareness of AIDS, climate change, sports, building hospitals, educational institutes, sports academies are the few areas where Tata contributes under their CSR initiatives. With this example, we can understand that under CSR umbrella, a lot of programs and activities can be done at various levels. Like let us see the theory of CSR. First theory is the stakeholders theory. So, we understood the emergence of CSR at the national international level and I have given you one example. So, we need to understand the theories related to CSR. The important theory is the stakeholders. The stakeholder is a person who has a stake in the business. Bigger the stake, bigger the risk. In simple words, at stake means at risk. When it comes to business, to put the stakeholder theory in a simplest form, we can say that those whose lives are affected by the corporate or business have the right and responsibility to participate in guiding it. Various theorists think that stakeholder theory is kind of a replica of CSR. Instead of having an inward approach, it starts from the outside world. It describes all the groups or community that will be affected by the business directly or indirectly. This theory talks about who are all legitimate stakeholders, their rights, etc. Also, what kind of expectations they can have from the particular business. Let us understand it example. There is a hospital in a local town and it produces medical waste on a daily basis, which needs to be disposed of safely. It is the moral and legal responsibility of the hospitals to do so for the safety of environment and public. However, as per the stakeholders theory, it starts with the community around, people who are living in the vicinity of the hospital. They might be adversely affected by medical waste if not disposed of safely. The community around the hospital has the right to clean the environment. Therefore, they are stakeholders for the hospital and can demand proper dumping of the medical waste. If you see purely from work matter, they do not have a right on the hospitals as they are not directly attached to it. However, they do have the moral claim to be part of the decision making when it comes to disposing of the medical waste. So, this is the most important point in this theory. Here we need to see the role of media. Here the media, they have to properly bring the story that the significance of, or it is the responsibility of the hospital to dispose the medical waste in a proper manner. That is very important. If they do not dispose properly, it affects, not only affects the environment, it affects the well-being of the people living close to the vicinity of the hospital. So, the media also, it has its own responsibility. They are part of the this entire process. So, people who are affected by the business get attached to it as the stakeholder and do enjoy some status in the decision making process. Here media need to play a significant role to bring its stories for the wider discussion and wider awareness. Now, the question arises, who are all stakeholder? Well, it depends upon the business to business. For a chemical producing business in a small town of UP, the list of stakeholder could be the following: proprietors, employees, customers and probable customers, suppliers and probable suppliers, people living in the town, financial institutions, government, competition. Some of the above mentioned stakeholders could be primary, some could be secondary. If you look closely, we will find that in some broad sense everyone is stakeholder. We will share air and land. So, anything with the potential to affect us in any manner makes us a stakeholder. If the particular industry pollutes the air, we are all the stakeholders. It is our responsibility to make them to understand this. Air is the common to everyone. It is our right to breathe pure air. So, if they pollute the air, it is, so everyone is stakeholders and we need to demand answer from the particular industry. So, this gives us the right to question and demand answers as and when by any business around. However, on practical grounds, stakeholders are defined as people who are directly affected by business decisions, not everyone. For example, in the Bhopal gas tragedy, everyone was the stakeholder who lived in Bhopal and nearby areas. When it came to compensation, it was only given to people who are visibly affected by it and not everyone who were present in Bhopal that day. The fundamental of the stakeholder theory is that since the society extends an unspoken consent to the business to operate, it is also has a reasonable right to support or criticize the business if it feels endangered in any way. Lot of socially responsible work was being done by both Indian businesses and multinational corporations. However, most of the activities or initiatives remained for the namesake and did not match the true spirit of CSR. Some even did it purely for the sake of public relations and media coverage. CSR in India had yet to evolve to reach its true potential. Thank you so much for listening this lecture. If you are further interested in these topics, these are the readings I have introduced to you. You can go through this reading and you can understand further about the topic. Thank you so much.